Have we got any questions? This lady there in the red.
Hi, I'm Alice Cooper. I work for Break, the road safety charity, and I'm wondering, what are your views on Vision Zero and how they fit into redesigning the street for people?
Right, so Iain?
Vision Zero, it's a really interesting concept. I think the organisation I left, the City of London, were one of those at the forefront. And the critical thing, it has to be owned by the community. And at the moment, it's a professional concept that's starting to get more sort of accepted politically, but until it's actually owned by the public, won't allow the big challenging things to be done to actually make our streets that much safer. So that's my kind of take on it. But there are a lot of people working earnestly towards that. So I think the role that you play, that help to encourage and engage the public, is absolutely vital in this.
Does anybody else want to comment on that? Robert, would you like?
Yeah, is this on? Oh, yes, yeah. It is. Marvellous. The common law duty of care for highway authorities is contained in the ruling in Pervin Yetkin versus Newham Council 2010, which says that a highway authority, in exercising its powers to create or maintain or manage a highway, has a duty of care to all road users, not just careful ones, but negligent ones too. So that's the highway authority point of view. The other thing is not to get totally fixated on streets. The danger is caused by vehicles, and there is a lot that can be done to change the design of vehicles. Pedestrian safety measures, pedestrian airbags, compressible fronts, and on heavy goods vehicles. We still allow heavy goods vehicles on our roads with appalling visibility. And if you go to the London Transport Museum, which I do recommend, you can see trams from the Edwardian period, which have little catchers on the front. They're like mattresses that drop down to scoop people up if they happen to fall in front of the tram. That's over 100 years ago. There's nothing like that at the moment.
Anybody else want to comment on this? No. There's a gentleman there.
Yeah, sorry, I've got two questions, one for Jim and one for everyone else. One for Jim is you didn't mention integrating urban food growing in urban forests, and I was wondered what your thoughts were about that. And on the others, it's what do you think went wrong in the whole Manual for Streets process? And do we need to go back potentially and completely rewrite the design manual for roads and bridges? Is the issue with slavishness to that?
Okay, I'll take my one first, shall I? I didn't mention it, you're right, but there's certainly a place for that in the urban forest. Probably not on the street, because one of the biggest complaints about trees and fruit is that fruit fall, etc. But there is definitely a place for that in local parks, local community groups. If you live in a peri-urban area and you've got highway, which is actually informal highway, which has larger open spaces, grass areas next to it, potential for that. In Eastern Europe, they've been doing that for years, so it's definitely a place, yeah.
So the rest of the team to respond. I forgot what the second question was. Can you repeat it again?
What do you think the issues with Manual for Streets not necessarily changing very much on the ground? Is the issue potentially kind of slavishness to the design manual for roads and bridges in design? Doesn't include anything on cycleways, for example.
Leah, would you like to take the...
I was just going to very quickly touch on your first point. Do you know about Incredible Edible in Todmorden? Yeah, so they've got a good example of how that's working for them, and I've seen some in Leeds city centre as well with some tomatoes growing and stuff, which is pretty cool. Where the local authority where I live, they can't use Manual for Streets. I've had some discussions with them about they wanted to chop down some trees near our street. They can't use Manual for Streets because they say they haven't adopted it. And they say that the last document that they formally adopted was a streets design guide, which I think was written in 1983. And this woman has a paper copy of it, and she says, "This is my copy. Don't lose it." I think it's about fear and risk, and they feel that if it hasn't been, it's about process as well. They haven't. If it's just a case of the council signing it off, saying we will commit to using manual for streets, I think some local authorities haven't even committed to doing it.